All right, so joining me now is somebody I've been looking forward to having on our show for many years. I've been reading his opinion pieces in the Providence Journal, now on Go Local Prov. We reposted much of his commentary that it's going to be in an event we're going to tell you about in a second on our Ocean State Current website. But before we get into all that, let's welcome to In the Dugout Dr. Mackubin Owens. Dr. Owens, welcome to In the Dugout.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
You have an amazing background. You are right now, you live in Newport, Rhode Island. You've been there for a few decades. You're a senior fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute. We'll get into more of your background in just a second. But as I put up this graphic, you've got an event coming up on tomorrow, Thursday evening, that we'd like to tell our viewers about. What can you tell us about your event with the Bristol County Concerned Citizens?
Well, it's designed to address the issue of the upcoming Declaration of Independence, Independence Day, and so forth, and what we celebrate that day. And a lot of people have they don't pay attention to what it is. It's just another summer day with fireworks, I guess. And people dimly recall perhaps that we declared our independence from Great Britain in 1776, but they paid less attention to what that document really meant. It goes way beyond just declaring independence from Great Britain. It actually establishes an idea.
Right, a novel idea. Yeah,
very novel. It was something that had never been done before. It's as Alexander Hamilton said in Federalist #1, we had the opportunity to establish a government based on choice and reflection rather than on force and accident.
So, all right, so we're going to get more into the details of your talk in just a second. But the event is Thursday evening, June 15th.
Right.
It's at 7 o'clock at the VFW Post on Hope Street in Bristol. The event, as I understand, is free and open to the public. Correct?
Correct.
All right, and the theme, as like you just said, again, we'll come back to the theme in a second, but reaffirming the original intent of the Declaration of Independence. And you're right. I think the progressive left, especially the way we teach it to our kids, or not teach it to our kids, is lost on, as you said, is lost on many Americans. Now back to. So we'll remind people of the event at the end of our interview. By the way, Mackubin, that's an interesting name. You said it has Scottish derivations?
It's a Scots name. So it's a sept of the Clan Buchanan. So the thing about the Scots, if they couldn't find anybody outside to fight, they'd fight among themselves. So
okay. Well, Mackubin, I looked it up. It means systematic mind, mysterious and peaceful. Interesting. But yet you're a warrior in a sense. You are a Marine, right? You're a Marine veteran.
Yes, I spent about 30 years active in reserve in the Marine Corps from 1964 to 1994.
And among many other things, you are a professor of national security affairs at the Naval War College right here in Newport, Rhode Island. Tell us a little bit about what that entailed.
Okay, I came here in 1987, and it was great. One of the best things I've ever gotten to do, to teach senior and mid-grade officers strategy, policy, the whole issue of how to approach the defense, the process of making policy and strategy. And it's probably one of the most important things we do. Is called professional military education, and it's a something that's we take very seriously. It goes back to the idea of how do you become a professional. You become a professional by studying your craft, by studying your what it is that you do. And of course, experience is good, but war is one of those things that you actually would prefer not to have experience in, because you don't want wars all the time.
But if you're going to get in one, you better damn well win it, right?
Yeah, and And one of the ways you prepare for that is to look at what the past teaches you. So but it's a combination of a little bit of strategic analysis, economic analysis, geopolitics, and anyway, I just think something that I
Now,
really enjoy doing.
our college form the same function it always has. I mean, I gotta admit, I've never actually been there. Is it open to the public?
No, these officers are selected to go there.
Okay. I mean, but can you go tour? Can the public tour the college, or is it private, secure military?
Yeah, they have a gate. There, you can get a pass to go to the
Okay.
museum, but other than
Okay.
that, it's not really open to the public.
Yep, secure. Now you've also written books on Abraham Lincoln, as you mentioned, U.S. military and foreign policy. You've contributed to the Wall Street Journal, and as we mentioned, local, all kinds of national publications from the L.A. Times and New York Post. And you were even a national security advisor to a U.S. senator, U.S. United States congressman.
Yeah, Senator Bob Casson from Wisconsin in the 1980s. It was a very interesting time. Of course, that was the Reagan years. And one of the things we got to do is kind of rejuvenate the military as he was coming out of the doldrums of after Vietnam. Yeah, so I worked for him and did his national security affairs and a little bit of his veterans affairs. And
you're way too humble because you served in Vietnam. You were in an infantry platoon. You were a company commander in the late 60s. You were wounded twice. You received the Silver Star Medal, and you retired as a colonel in the 1990s. Mac Owens, thank you for your sacrifice and service to our nation.
Thank you. They gave me a hat.
Oh, I got to wear the hat next time you're in the dugout. There you go. All right. Before we move on to the substance of your speech, I just want to mention about the Bristol community, Bristol County Concerned Citizens. That is a group, it's a local organization in Bristol County that advocates traditional values, common sense, and it's by multi-partisan, Republican, Democrats, Independents, Libertarians, and everyone invited. Tony Rigo is the chairman, a good friend of ours, Peter Hewitt, who helped arrange us meet you, along with I'm blanking out my friend's name from Bristol, who helped get us and get in touch with you. DeWolf Fulton, yes, DeWolf Fulton. So I want to give a shout out to them as well, Tony Rigo, DeWolf Fulton, and Peter Hewitt, and thank you for doing this event. All right, so the theme again of your event coming up, and we'll tell people at the end on Thursday where and when again, but is reaffirming the original intent of the Declaration of Independence. Why do you think it needs to be reaffirmed in the first place?
Well, because that's that's the fundamental principles of the United States, is the idea basically of equality, not equality in all senses, but equality in terms of the equal rights, natural rights, and also the right not to be ruled without your consent. And we've moved away from that, and for a number of reasons, which I get to in my talk, most of which have to do with the change in politics that occurred at the latter part of the 19th century, the rise of the progressive movement. Now, the progressives are usually portrayed as just good government kind of folks, but they really, people like Woodrow Wilson and others, basically deny the importance of the Declaration, and they undermined many of the safeguards in the Constitution, especially separation of powers. And so as a result, you have something far different from what we founders intended. I say we have an oligarchy rather than a republic, and they're ruled by the few in their own interest. And
yes, I agree with. I mean, where we're broadcasting this interview with you on our Wuhan Wednesday, which is symbolic of just false narratives put forth by government. I call those few the political supremacists. That's my name. They think they know best and what's in everyone's best interest, and feel they have the right and the power to impose those values onto everybody else. So regardless of what the progressives actually believe, that they also are supremacists in that way, aren't they? That they feel they should be imposing their views on all of us.
Well, I mean, that's the key. The whole idea of the creation of the progressives is the administrative state.
Yes.
In the administrative state, you pay homage in one regard to democracy, but on the other hand, the actual governance is done by faceless bureaucrats, unelected, who in many cases, their organizations do combine all of those aspects. They combine the executive, the legislative, and the judicial aspects of governance, which James Madison called the very definition of tyranny. So it is, they're tyrannical in the sense that they rule in their own interest, or what they think is the interest of all, but it's their own interest.
Yeah, without our consent.
Without consent, yeah. And
the subtitle of your address is, "Do we still hold these truths? The
yes.
Eternal meaning of the Declaration of Independence." Do you think the political class, or Americans for that matter, still hold these truths to be self-evident?
I'm not sure, because I'm not sure they even understand what self-evident means.
Yeah,
And
true.
um,
Self-interested, it means now, yeah.
yeah, it's unfortunate, but again, there's sort of the denigration of. I remember several years ago, I think it was, that Nancy Pelosi got scoffed at somebody who raised the Declaration of Independence, and that's typical. And you saw that with Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson has to be one of the worst presidents in the history of the United States. And in terms of the revolution, and it is a revolution that he wrought. The government that he advocated is
Oh, Dr. Owens, I think, okay, you just accidentally muted yourself. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, yeah, I just all of a sudden got a phone call.
Oh, okay.
Well, so yeah, but the progressive enterprise is completely at odds with the idea of a self-governing people.
Yeah, and a representative form of government, a Republican form of government, where the power is held by the people, as you write, through their elected representatives,
right.
Not to, like you said, not to the unelected bureaucrats, not to the unelected political supremacists, as I call them, who through regulation and political influence in the media are imposing their views on the rest of us. In the column, which by the way you can read on the Ocean State Current, we have it right at the top of our featured articles for any of our viewing audience out there. You should read the whole column. But in that column, you write that you note that President Lincoln understand the value of preserving this Republican form of government. Could you expound on that a little?
Yeah, he wrote this is a fragment that he composed probably sometime during his campaign, or right after his campaign. He was dealing with the secession crisis, and the question was what it is that we're trying to preserve. And he talked about the idea of the Declaration of Independence being a picture. He called it the picture of gold. This comes from Proverbs 25:11. And so the Declaration and the principles of the Declaration are to be found in the Declaration. I'm sorry, the picture of gold is the Declaration. It is surrounded by the the frame of silver, which is the Constitution. So the Constitution exists for the Declaration, exists to protect those rights that we discuss in the Declaration. A lot of people,
And that is the purpose of government, is to protect those inalienable and constitutional rights. That's the role, right?
right? And I mean, you see this all the time, that we forget sometimes that the founders believe those rights belong to us from the beginning of time. That they're not given by government. They're presumably protected by government. So, for instance, the Second Amendment doesn't bestow the right of self-defense. The Second Amendment is the Constitution for protection of the natural right of self-defense.
Right. Yep.
And so it's kind of cause and effect here to keep these things separated. But again, the purpose of the Declaration is to defend and protect those natural rights that are described in the Declaration.
We've if I'm gonna not totally, Chef, I'm just gonna give an example of what you're talking about. We've been talking for a good year. We did a major report earlier this year on how the Rhode Island Department of Education, or the Rhode Island Department of Indoctrination, as I call it, is pushing false social studies guidelines that what our report clearly demonstrates are anti-Christian, anti-American, and with the view of everything seen through a racial lens, with the view that America was founded on the principle of oppressors oppressing the oppressed. And that's what America is all about, where you and I understand that America's true birthright is one of liberty. We fled that kind of oppression from European and English monarchies in order to establish a free and independent country, free from tyranny in here. But yet the left wants you to believe, the progressives want you to believe that America's founding fathers were nothing but white supremacists intent on finding some fluffy language to continue to oppress, other groups of people. And this is what they're teaching our kids, and it's in writing. It's been approved. It's what future social studies standards and curricula will look like in our public schools. Your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, that's the worst part about all this is and it is indoctrination. You see it in the 1619 project, which teaches that the true founding of the United States is not the Declaration, but in fact the first importation of slaves into Virginia, when in fact that was a historical event. But that doesn't define the United States. Look, our biggest problems arise when we do not abide by our own principles. And we haven't. You can go back, you can look at slavery, you can look at Jim Crow, you can look at conflict with the native peoples of the West and so forth. But the ironic thing is that those actions can be criticized only on the basis of the very principles that we accept. I like to point out that before the older and dominant idea of the relationship among people, either domestically or internationally, is defined by Thucydides in his history of the Peloponnesian War. When you have the Melians who wanted to surrender to Athens, and they appealed to justice, dike, and the Athenians replied, "Justice arises only between equals. As for the rest, the strong do what they will, the weak suffer what they most." So in other words, pure power, no understanding of justice. Justice is the underlying principle of the Declaration of the American founding. Again, have we lived up to those? No. We're frequently violate them, and we are properly should be criticized when we do. But it's those that define the United States, not, you know,
That's such a great point. Let me just, excuse me for cutting in, but today is Flag Day. It's Wednesday, it's Flag Day. And, of course, in years past, we've had the question, do we kneel during the flag or turn our back on it during sporting events or other events where the national anthem is played or the Pledge of Allegiance? But that flag is a symbol of the pursuit of that kind of justice and freedom and equal treatment under the law. It's a symbol. You're right. We have not been perfect. In fact, we've been highly imperfect in the execution of those principles and the application of those principles over the centuries and recent decades. But still, that flag is a symbol of everything that makes it unique and in world history. It's an ideal that we continue to strive to live up to. So on Flag Day, and as a veteran yourself, with a Silver Star, been injured in fighting for those freedoms, fighting for this country, what does the flag symbolize to you?
Just exactly what you said. I mean, it's the visual, the visual articulation of the principles of the United States, which again, justice, equality, and the like. Again, principles that we haven't always lived up to, but I think that define the United States. And, they should be the things that when kids take civics lessons, those are the things they should look at rather than, a story that portrays the United States as something that is far different than what the founders intended.
It's just because something might have occurred or is a fact, like you said, it does not, you can't ignore everything else that has happened and all the, if that's a con, all the good thing, if that's a bad thing, all the good things that have happened. And, one fact does not define a nation's history or founding. You talked about the founding principles. You've referred to it many times here. On the left today, they not only ignore those principles, they're now openly demeaning them. They're openly demeaning them as supremacist, as oppressive, as bigoted. And it's really, you write here a great line. Progressives have effectively replaced the concept of rights with prescriptive entitlements. I would add to that they think special interest political groups should have special rights. Your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's part and parcel that, Madison warned against faction.
Yeah.
And
tribes, as I call them. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And we're going to have factions. We can't get rid of faction, as he said in the Federalist. You can't have liberty without factions. And if you want to have a liberty, you have to have factions. The question is, how do you minimize the damage that they can do? And he ended up arguing you pit them against each other. But the idea is that government can't favor one over another, and that's what's happening right now. Is that we have majority factions that are certainly very problematic in terms of the way we deal with political problems.
All right, before we remind people of the event you'll be speaking at tomorrow night, one final thought from you. We're approaching July 4th this year. In 3 years, it will be the 250th celebration of the Declaration of Independence. What your July 4th message, and do you have hope that this anti-American supremacist tyranny of the few will be overcome, and that by our 250th celebration year, Americans will indeed, as you write, reaffirm the intent of the Declaration?
Well, if it happens, it's going to have to be as a result of specific actions that we take. It can have to be focused on doing away with this sort of indoctrination that undermines the faith that Americans have in their government. And it's tough because so many of our institutions have been basically infiltrated. There was a term from not too long ago from a German um, leftist, Rudy Duchka, who talked about the long march through the institutions. And he took his guide from an Italian communist named Antonio Gramsci, whose idea was basically, if you're going to achieve socialism, you have to go after the institutions that uphold the rest of society. And that's been at work for decades, and to be undone, it's going to take a lot of work on our part.
Yeah, all of our institutions have been compromised, whatever you want to call them, the few, the woke, the political supremacists, whatever you want to call them. You're absolutely right about that. Our institutions used to be a positive foundation for this country. Now that with those institutions crumbling, it seems as if our national image, our national pursuit of freedom and equality is also crumbling. The event is Thursday night, June 15th, 7 p.m. at the VFW Post on Hope Street in Bristol. The featured speaker will be our guest right now, Mac Owens, Silver Star Award winner, sacrifice for his country. His talk reaffirming the original intent of the Declaration of Independence. I hope you can turn out Thursday night to see Dr. Owens' speech. Mac, I know you like to go by Mac. Thank you so much for joining us here and in the dugout. We're very appreciative of your time.
My pleasure. Thanks.
All right, we'll look forward. Yep, go ahead.
No, I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the event, and thanks for having me in the show.
And we'll have you back again. I'm sure you're a terrific writer and a terrific patriot. Thank you again. And our folks today, we thank you for tuning in to In the Dugout here on this Wuhan Wednesday. We'll see you tomorrow and in the coming days and weeks. So for In the Dugout, Mike Stenos out. See you next game.